And I think I see the recording signal on, so I think we're good to go. Welcome, Christine.
She's not quite live yet.
Oh, not quite live yet? Okay.
It'll say it's live in the corner.
Hey, everyone.
Are we live yet, Tiffany?
Sorry, we're not live yet. It's just in the process. It's going very slow. I apologize.
Okay.
It seems to be stuck. I'll keep trying if you want to go on with the meeting.
Well, yeah, what we can do is once we can it still gets posted to YouTube once it's recorded, so it's available for the public. It's just, it won't be live streamed as we conduct the meeting. Okay, so go ahead, Mayor Lawrence.
All right, thank you. I'll call the Police Services Board meeting to order at 1:05 p.m. And I'd like to acknowledge that here in Silicate, we're in the
Oh boy.
area of Treaty 3 on the traditional territory of the land. Yep.
Mayor Lawrence, you're cutting out.
I guess I need to do these. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right, I'll sit closer to the computer. Does that make the connection better? Not sure. Okay. Just a land acknowledgement I was doing, and we also serve the many people from Treaties 5 and Treaty 9, the Anishinaabe Asking Nation. And also today, I'd like to acknowledge and welcome Mayor Monk from Pickle Lake joining our meeting, and staff with him from the Township of Pickle Lake. Introduction of amendments to the agenda?
I have none.
None. Motion to confirm the agenda as presented. Moved by Christine Suwanis, seconded by Doug Warrens. All in favor, carried. Thank you. Declarations of pecuniary interest.
I have none.
Thank you. And adoption of the January 20th, 2021 Police Services Board minutes. A motion to adopt them. Moved by Christine Suwanis, seconded by Doug Lawrence. Any discussion? Good. All in favor of adopting those minutes? Carried. Thank you. Business arising from the minutes?
There are none.
None. Thank you. And then we'll move on to items for discussion. And the first thing I'll do, we'll just change the order slightly. We're going to do, I'm going to welcome our new detachment commander, and then we'll change and do the policing services board's discussion. That would be item
C,
I guess, is it? Yeah. So today we have the pleasure of welcoming our new detachment commander, Inspector Carl Duell. Inspector Duell started his policing career as a cadet in Prince Edward County as a constable. Now I see the printout didn't come out fully, so you're going to have to fill in the blanks, Inspector. From there, he moved through the Siouxlate, various roles in Siouxlate and Upper Ottawa Valley Detachment, and as well as doing staff development for the southeastern region. Inspector Duell returned to the Northwest region as staff sergeant in Siouxlate, and he was in charge of operations for Siouxlate, Pickle Lake, Kitchimekusa-Vanunawig, Wapakeka, and one other community, North Caribou. Thank you. Inspector Duell officially became detachment commander here on April the 13th. And we're very happy to have you on board, Inspector, and look forward to working with you over the coming years. So
thank you very much. And thank you to everybody that's on this for the support, and I'm really excited about working together with everybody on this call and the community.
Thank you. I should note too that Chairperson Darlene Angelkineb provided her regrets yesterday. She's unable to attend and asked me to chair the meeting today. CIO, we'll go to item C, Community Safety and Policing Act PSB Framework, and you can give your discussion here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Lawrence. Very briefly, I made some meeting notes from the session I attended yesterday with the Solicitor General's department, ministry, I should say, regarding the new Community Safety Policing Act that is replacing the Police Services Act from 1990. It's going to be brought into force, full force in the first quarter of 2022. They're telling us that date is tentative at this point. Jamie, I can send you all my notes if you want. Makes it easier. Okay. That date is still tentative. They're not sure when exactly to be done, but they're hoping the first quarter of 2022. Section 10 contract municipalities won't see much of a difference with reference to the police services boards because they already have them for their communities. Section 5.1 municipalities will see a difference because they didn't previously have police services boards, so that will be changed under the new act. The Solicitor General launched the OPP Detachment Board proposal process on March 18th of this year. So of course, as usual, there's not a lot of time for us to submit our proposals, and they recognize that in the discussions yesterday. The proposals for our new Police Services Board makeup are due by June 7th to be submitted to the Solicitor General. And they indicated yesterday on the call that they're flexible with that deadline, recognizing that a lot of municipalities and First Nations communities have a lot to discuss to determine what would best suit their makeup for their boards and whether or not they want to request having separate boards within the detachment areas. So they're looking at establishing the boards by the late summer, early fall of 2021. So what I mean by that is the approval of the proposals for the new makeup of the boards. The question was asked yesterday with the creation of more than one, if the possibility to have more than one police services board within the police detachment areas, if it's not feasible for reasons, especially for us, with reasons for distance between our First Nations communities that are north of us that have OPP presence in their communities. They said that they'll look at all submissions with the mindset that it may not be practical to have one board serve all of the communities within the detachment area. Municipalities and First Nations, they're saying though that they want us to work together to determine whether or not it would be feasible to have one board serve all of our communities within the detachment. And at the very least, they want us to meet to see whether or not we're willing to work together to have one board. So that consultation has to happen. Planning forward, I would suggest that Sioux Lookout, Pickle Lake, North Caribou Lake, and Webakika, that we meet virtually to see if there's an interest in collaborating to have one police services board serve all of our communities, and whether it be feasible to have any other combination of board for our proposal. Once that's determined, then we can submit our proposal to the ministry. If there's an interest in having a shared board, whichever way that looks like, Sioux Lookout, we would be willing to take the lead to work on the proposal on behalf of whatever communities we decide if we want to partner with for our police services board. So we would consult with staff and with our respective boards currently to put that proposal together and get it in. A couple items of interest that came out of the meeting, of course, is there's no planned funding from the province to facilitate training or travel costs for newly formed boards. They haven't discussed it, and right now there's nothing in the queue to be able to fund it. They are looking at ways of providing training that's going to be mandated under the new act. but they haven't come up with any suggestions. That's just being talked about at this time. And I asked about consultation. It's not specific to the Police Services Board, but that's part of it. There's 3 components that they're working over the next year. And one is, if you bear with me for 1 second, one is the OPP detachment boards. The other one is OPP governance advisory councils. And the third one, of course, is the OPP billing to work into the new Community Safety Policing Act. And those 3 things need to be sorted out before they bring it to legislature for formal passing in the first quarter of 2022. So of course I asked the question while I had the opportunity. I asked about the OPP billing component of the act, because that's hugely important, especially to Pickle Lake and to Sioux Lookout, because we're such a disadvantage. We have high policing costs in our communities. And what they said was that I asked if there was going to be consultation. They anticipated there would be, which I was a little bit, I wasn't convinced that there would be, but I'm hoping there is. So I think that it's important for us to make sure that that consultation does happen and that we put our interests forward. And they said that it wouldn't probably be for another 6 months. So that brings us to October. So if they plan on passing the Community Safety and Policing Act in the first quarter of 2022, that's not a lot of time for consultation, especially to talk about the OPP billing, the new OPP billing model. So that's a concern for me, and I'm sure for Pickle Lake, for me, and sorry, I shouldn't say for me, for Sioux Lookout and Pickle Lake alike. So that's something that we have to keep on the forefront as we move through this process to lobby government to make sure that they listen to us with reference to our high policing costs compared to the rest of the municipalities in the province. So that's all I have. If anybody has any questions, I know it was quick.
I guess what do we do next? What's the next step?
I would suggest that we coordinate a meeting with our First Nations partners, communities that are within our detachment, and with Pickle Lake Police Services Board to talk about whether or not we want to create one board, or what the feeling is, what the interest is in creating one board or going separate, or amalgamate perhaps Pickle Lake and Sioux Lookout, and then the First Nations communities can form a separate board. It's open to a lot of variations.
I
We
guess
have to have that discussion.
Right. So having that discussion, all parties, is mandatory part of this process.
Yeah, they're encouraging us to do it, because if we go in with proposals to have separate boards within our detachment area, they're going to want to know if we consulted and whether we did our due diligence.
So I know you need to go, Michelle, so I just let you go, but to that, we can look to you to set that next step up, perhaps work with Carl to.
I believe the police services can't be involved in this. It has to be a community-based decision from my conversations with Carl. Am I correct? Yeah. So it would be our municipalities and then our First Nations leaders in the other 2 communities. It's just the 4, right, Carl?
Yeah, that's correct. So it would be North Caribou, Wapakika, Pickle Lake, and Sioux Lookout.
Right.
And I can give you the contacts that I have for there, but you probably already know them already. But if you need them, I'll send them to you.
Okay. So would that be good for Pickle Lake as well? Okay.
Yeah, be fine with us for sure.
Okay, so what we'll do, Mayor Monk and Jamie, will send out another Zoom meeting, and we'll try and coordinate a meeting that we'll have to have the meeting so that everybody can be present. So we'll send out a doodle poll to make sure everybody's on board for a date and time in the very near future, because we don't have a lot of time to submit our proposal.
Sorry, just so I'm clear, you have 3. You have Wiagama angling and trout. Then is that it?
Carl,
that's the 3 northern ones.
So Big Trout is a OFMPA community. We facilitate policing there, but and I have to report to them, but they would not, I don't believe they would be a community you would consider as part of this.
No, that's one thing they said on the call.
Wapakika and Wiagama then would be the 2 northern ones.
Right.
So 4 of us.
Okay. Just a question for you, Michelle, in regards to the OPP billing model. Did Sioux Lookout also sign on a new contract last year when you formed your board? Because we're on a new billing model here.
Yeah, we did sign a new contract, but our discount was the same as it was previous, and what the Solicitor General told the mayor when he met. Perhaps you want to comment on that, Doug? You were there.
I'm not sure. Well, we had a discount before. I was obviously trying to get a deeper discount, and when it was evident we wouldn't get that, what I asked for was to have the discount keep applying, not just for the year 2020 or 2019. I can't remember when. 2020 was that discount would be in place until such time as a new Policing Services Act and billing model came into being. Is that the discussion you meant, Michelle?
Yes. Yeah, the discount would continue, but there was no guarantee that it would continue beyond the new policing model. Like once that changed in the new act, that all new rules applied.
Okay, because we're signed on for our new billing model until 2024.
Yeah, we did sign a multi-year, but the Solicitor General said that may not to be in effect because the new rules of the new act will come in. So
Well,
we
I
run,
think that
so that's
definitely opportunity for us to push back on that.
exactly. Yeah. I apologize. I have to go. I'm going to be late.
Okay,
I see
thanks,
everybody.
Michelle. So yeah, the Police Services Board, Carl, do you have any, I mean, Dwight and I had a brief discussion, and I don't see how the First Nation communities that you're involved with how we have much in common for a Police Services Board. Or that they would, I mean, typically the First Nations want to be in control of their own affairs. It would be, I think, difficult for them to be part of this.
Yeah, like I think, I mean, obviously you'll have to have those discussions with them for what they want to do. No matter what they decide, I still will be flying up there quarterly to present them with their individual report anyway. And offering, because I have to go up there and be in the communities as much as I can as well. So yeah, like I think there is some fundamental differences in what Sioux Lookout and Pickle Lake would be looking for and what their needs are going to be up there. So I think that's an important discussion that you guys have with them.
Right now, do you report to Chief and Council, or do they have Police Services Boards?
No, I report to Chief and Council.
I just don't see what the province thinks, how they think that can work. I just don't see it. I don't see what the advantage of having one common Police Services Board would be for all those four, the Pickle Lake, Sioux Lookout, and the two First Nations. I don't even think the two First Nations would want to have the same Police Services Board. It's anyway.
I don't think so either, and I would fear there'd be, I mean, it'd be cost prohibitive, right, for them. That's an expensive. If once we meet in person again, that's an expensive trip. Either us all up there or them down here. It's expensive.
I think too, like you said, Doug, they want a common Police Services Board. There's not a lot of commonality between the communities, and the size of the board is going to mushroom. If each community has 5 councillors and a chief, we're going to end up with a Police Services Board with 25 people on it. We'll never get anything accomplished.
And the discussion would be split up into 4 different discussions. I mean, what do we have to do with you know, it's 4 distinctly different discussions. Why are we coming together to do that? Yeah,
I'm thinking 2 boards, you know, us and you guys, and then the northern one. We don't want to drive a wedge between it, but it only makes sense to have us together and those 2 communities together. I'm sure that their issues are very similar between the 2. If going out on a limb, maybe, Carl, are they?
Yes, they're not even the same really either, and they are very, very far apart from each other with no direct flights in between themselves either. So Yeah, like what I would imagine is that they're going to want me to continue to present to them individually, and then whatever we end up with down in the Pickle Lake, Sioux Lookout area is what I would imagine is going to be the
So
plan.
possibility of 3 boards.
Correct.
Well, I guess we apply for that and see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, they made I don't even know what
Do we
their
apply-
obligation
so-
is. Their obligation is to create a board. If they don't want to, they may just say chief and council is our board, and that's what we wish.
And then we have a board and life goes on.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that the government fails to understand the geographical distances between our communities, which causes a large barrier in trying to bring these meetings together. But like you've all said, the issues amongst our communities are quite different from one another. So to have a productive board, we would just be going around the table with the same issues and not gaining much traction on them, because there's such a vast variety of those issues amongst us.
When I think, well, we're going to go through the policing statistics now, and I have an inkling what, and I'm sure that Mayor Monk and I know Carl knows what the statistics are a little bit more in the Northern First Nations than I do, but we have thousands of Liquor License Act violations a year in Sioux Lookout, and I would guess that in Wapakeka and North Caribou, they have nominal, they're probably single digits.
I'm definitely on board with siding with you, Doug, for sure. We definitely don't need our own up here. That makes so much sense being piggybacked on with you guys for sure.
Well, maybe we can up our police services board to 5 people, then that would, 3 is such a fragile number for quorum. Thank you for coming today, Christine. We wouldn't have had a meeting if you hadn't come. I don't know how that gets determined in the future. All right, well, I guess that discussion is ongoing, and Michelle will take the lead in moving it forward expeditiously. Thank
Sounds
you. You good with that, Mayor Monk, Jamie? All right, so we'll go back to item B, the first quarter OPP statistics. Inspector Doe.
Okay. So we'll go through the report the same way that we normally do. I'll try to highlight anything I see is worth mentioning, but if there's anything contained in the report that anybody has questions on, just interrupt me and we'll go from there. So this has to do with the Police Service Board report from January to March of this year. So at this point right now, we have no public complaints to report on. Our cruiser patrol hours, 322. To me, what that means is that, again, the overall calls for service may be slightly lower due to COVID, which means that the officers now have more time to get out there and do proactive patrol. Snowmobile patrol hours were 15, which may not seem like that much, but for previous years, that's actually kind of an increase. And that just, we're having a bit more of a presence out on the trails. But we have, this year, we were able to get our auxiliary members the final piece of their training that they needed. So I plan on having a much more robust snowmobile patrol in the municipality of Sioux Lookout and in Pickle Lake next year. Foot patrol hours, that's a good number for those winter months. I'm happy with that. And the school patrol hours also, especially considering COVID, that's half decent. Now we move into our record management report. Of note, I guess you would see the ones that stuck out to me would be the 2 robberies that are recorded there. That usually raises a flag for people. We actually only have 1 robbery. There was initially the homicide that we had in February or in March, before the person passed away, the initial charge that was laid was a robbery. And since the person passed away, that charge is no longer there. So that'll be cleaned up by the next report. That won't be on there anymore. Property crime is down again. And this, I really do feel, has a lot to do with COVID. There's less people out moving around. So that's why that happens. Drug crime stayed fairly consistent from year to year last year with our drug officer. Next page, the clearance rate there. I had this flagged to find out why our property crime clearance dropped so much, because we want to make sure that we're doing what we can to solve these crimes. And same with I had some questions about the drug crime, the clearance rate there. So what it appears to be, I mean, property crime was, if you flip back to the other page, the property crime was low anyway. And some of the ones that we actually had were like mischiefs and things like that. Those are mischiefs that happen over the night, and it's really they're minor and they're really hard to try to track down who could be responsible there. So we gotta continue to work better on making sure we can try to solve these crimes, but when there's no evidence, it makes it difficult. The drug crime, the reason that shows a decrease in our clearance rate has to do with a reporting mechanism that I'm looking at with region, and we've got to get that changed. So I don't have any concerns with the drug crime going down. That should be fixed. And then of course, the other thing is, the criminal record and vulnerable sector checks. We're trying to do as much as we can for the community. There's a lot of businesses that depend on having, like SLIFNA and other agencies that depend on criminal record checks to keep their operations moving. But due to COVID, we have to try to limit the amount of criminal record checks and vulnerable checks that we're doing coming into the detachment. So we have a commitment with the local agencies to do what we can to provide them what they need, but a lot of the other stuff is going away. Like, we're not going to have vulnerable sector checks for people working at the summer camps or soccer coaches this year. So those numbers will continue to go down. So before I move on to the billing summaries, is there any questions with those? No? Okay. So we'll move on to the billing summary. I went through this, and it's down again quarter to quarter. Again, it's a lot, I believe, has to do with COVID and less people moving through the community. So there wasn't anything that I actually highlighted as something like a trend that I thought was important to discuss. But as you work your way through it, if you have any questions, just let me know.
Yeah, I looked at this, Inspector, and I would expect January to March last year was largely pre-COVID. COVID shutdown started mid-March. I think March 13th is the date that sticks in my mind. So the January to March statistics from last year would be the more typical year-to-year statistics that we've been having. So it's a good comparison this year with the impact of COVID when you look at January to March this year versus January to March last year, because this is all COVID in 21, and it was 10 out of 12 weeks were not COVID last year. So it's sort of a good comparator. But then I looked back at the ongoing table I have, which I haven't updated for a year or so, but I have 2010 to 2018 in each of these categories. And if I annualized January to March of this year and compared it to the average from 2010 to 2018, the categories are down, starting at violent crime, they're down 36%, 69%, 42%, 95%, 45%, 0%, plus 3%, minus 58, minus 43. I couldn't figure out at the end, I had minus everything in total was down 25% in terms of calls for service. And I thought that doesn't make sense. But the two heaviest ones that are at zero are statutes and acts is basically the same in January to March annualized as the average has been. It annualizes to 390 and it's 390 over the long term, over those 10 years. So statutes and acts hasn't come down at all in COVID. And neither has operational. Operational has in fact gone up slightly, just mild numbers, but they're both the annualized is 1,568, and the 9-year average 2010 to 18 was 1,512. So it's interesting. Those two are about the same even in COVID, while all the others are down, 50%, 60%, 40%. Would there be an explanation for that? Why statutes and acts and operational remain pretty constant?
Yeah, I mean, well, statute and acts includes mental health, right? Mental health related calls. And I think we can all, we've probably all seen it, but there is definitely an increase in mental health related calls for service. And again, it is related back likely, a lot of it to this COVID and how that's affecting people's mental well-being. I can't say for sure, but because I haven't looked into that, but that would make sense, because I do know that on a day-to-day average, it seems like we are dealing with more mental health. And it'll be interesting as we move into the next quarter then, when hopefully we're moving forward with our mobile crisis response team in Sioux Lookout, where they will be, like, that's a good test pilot for them to be looking, because that's their main thing. We'll be looking into the mental health issues that we have in the community and how they respond to some of these calls. But in order to answer your question there, I think mental health is a thing that's continuing to rise. And, back in the day, even pre-COVID, we might have associated different offenses or different calls for service to different categories. And I think now we're becoming much more aware of like what the main issue is. And, mental health is a main component to a lot of the crimes and a lot of the calls for service that we get in Sioux Lookout.
So yeah, it might appear that I'm sure maybe mental health is on the rise, but it may even appear more so to your officers than it is, because everything else has dropped down and it has stayed the same. So it seems to take out more. It apparently takes out more of their day, but it's just in comparison to the other things have dropped away more.
Probably, and they can then spend more time, dealing with those calls. And
so is the operational the same, where you say that mental health comes into the operational calls as well?
Like, if we're going to say why, like, as operational over the years has changed, I think that would be, a lot of that has to do with proper classification over the years. So over the last 3 to 4 years, we've really tried to focus on making sure that our officers are classifying calls for service where they are most appropriate. And that is taking, that's lessons that we have to all learn and change, where we used to get the call, 2 people fighting there's a fight on Front Street. So it used to be called, back in the day, they would call that, it would be classified as an assault, even though by the time you arrive there's nobody fighting, and it's not an assault technically if there's not a victim. People can have a consensual fight. It shouldn't be classified as an assault. It's going to go under one of the it could land on one of the operational categories.
Operational comprises more than 50% of these nine categories. Operational alone comprises more than 50% of all calls. Right.
And I would also say, like, just looking at it right now, when you look at domestic disputes, that is not something that would be trending down. That would be consistent over the years, that domestics they're a constant.
Is there a category, domestic disputes, in
Yeah, under operational, it's the fifth one down. So those are non-criminal domestic. So that's two partners having a verbal argument.
It's just a short sample period, but that's up about 33% from last year in the same period.
Yeah. And that may have to do with COVID, being at home, all those things too, right? It's hard.
Well, I continue to think that there's going to be lessons that we can learn, or maybe we already know them, and maybe we've already tried to pass on to the powers that be from the changes that we see in our statistics with COVID, and the correlationship to many of the other statistics in our community, from airport movements to overnight stays in hotels, etc. And if you put all those statistics together, they'll all trend. There'll be a correlation between all of them.
100%.
That was Silicon statistics. I'm not sure if Mayor Monk and Jamie, I guess we're not doing Pickle Lake statistics. That's just so. Thanks for hanging in there.
They get theirs next week.
Yeah.
Ours is really little. It's on one page,
No, I don't. No.
but then
It's
so
just
is our bill. Our bill's only on one page too.
A big number could go on one page though.
Yeah.
Anything, Christine? Anything?
I'm not familiar, but nothing that sticks out anyway. No, I'm good, thanks.
Thank you. All right. I don't think, do we normally have a motion receiving those? Well, let's have a motion to receive the, Tiffany, are you there?
Sorry, did you ask me? Normally, we don't have a motion to receive the statistics.
Very good. Thank you. Then we'll stick with the normal. Item D, adding detachment information message to the municipal website. Inspector Dool.
Okay, so and I can talk about this a bit when I'm up in Pickle Lake as well. But we have a new regional commander for the Northwest region, and I was talking to him when I was up in Pickle Lake a couple of weeks ago, and he brought in some really good ideas that I want to move forward with, and one of them is. First of all, we want for the Northwest region, we want to have a better presence on the OPP.ca website for our region and our detachment specific. So what we're hoping, first of all, to start there is that if someone goes to OPP.ca, looks up Sioux Lookout cluster, we can have a more vibrant, not the picture of the detachment from 2003 when, anyway. So a more updated pictures. It'd be nice if there was maybe some messages from the various, even if there's a quote from the various communities that this detachment serves. That's what we want for the OPP.ca. Then when we move, what he's also asking is that municipalities like Sioux Lookout, and sorry, Jamie, I haven't looked at Pickle Lakes before, but mostly have really good websites, web pages or Facebook pages. And usually their fire department has a nice write-up and things like that. And then when it comes to clicking down on the police for the jurisdiction, it's just go to oppa.ca. So what we'd like to do with permission of the municipalities is build a policing portion to that, provide pictures, provide comment from the detached commander, things like that, so that when citizens are looking at moving to Sioux Lookout or to Pickle Lake, they can click on the police and they'll right away know who their detached commander is. They can know what we serve, what we do, maybe some other pictures and links and things like that. So I've got a officer up in Pickle Lake named Paige Phillips. She's got some background in journalism, and she can take amazing photographs. So she's been tasked with doing all of this. So what we're looking for from the police services boards, I guess, is just to touch base with the municipalities and see if this is something that they would like, and who then Paige can work with on developing these things for your municipal pages, if it's what you want.
We're 100% on board with that, Carl. I think it's a fantastic idea. Paige is welcome to reach out to myself, and I can set her up with the appropriate people within our front office to get that uploaded onto the site once it's ready to go. If I could make a suggestion, I think it would be really beneficial for each detachment if you even had a full listing, kind of like of the fleet that you guys have, like if you've got boats, if you've got skidoos, quads, that sort of thing, so that the community knows what sort of policing services you're offering and where they should be expecting to see police throughout the year. I know that Sergeant Martin put a really large focus on skidoo patrol here after the course was completed here, and it was very well received by the community. So I think having that information present on the sites, along with those pictures of the detachment, maybe even the pictures of who our sergeants are, the picture of yourself and our commanders, would be really helpful for people that are looking on our municipal sites for some more information about our local detachment.
That's a great idea. And I think what we have to do, like, it has to be a partnership where we're doing that together, because the worst thing we can ever have is those stale websites where it has, like I said, the Sioux Lookout pictures from 2003. So it looks awful. So I think it'll be like in 2 years or whatever, if the sergeants in Pickle Lake decide to move on or whatever, we have to remember that we got to keep these things updated. But I think if we assign someone like Paige and then that torch gets passed, like for Sioux Lookout or for Pickle, then we keep the pictures updated. But I like the idea on the resources as well.
Yeah, Sioux Lookout would be very supportive, Carl, and I like Jamie's ideas, the great ideas there. We do have an IT comms person who's just been with us now for 4 or 5 months, I think. Chris Pollard. He's excellent at producing all these techno productions, whether it be photography, videography, or websites that combine these things. So he'd be the contact to do some, that if you wanted somebody to do some of the work or provide it. But I go through Michelle for now in terms of contact here.
Okay.
But Chris Pollard, actually, he worked for CKDR for years and journalism as well. That's a bit of a background there in videography. So I'm not sure if videos were part of this or not, but often on a website, you'll click and get a video.
Yeah, I mean, and if we think, I mean, this is like, I'm not on Facebook or anything like that, but if the municipalities or the town of Pickle Lake have their own Facebook page too, it probably has options to scroll through and see what the other services. So even there, and then if there's a detachment message from me or a media release from Paige or from Andrea, we could even, send them to your text, and if do uploads onto them. Keep those kind of, and then it could be more vibrant anyway. I don't know how many people look at websites anymore. Everything's on Facebook. So, but we're definitely willing to, we really want to work with you and get a good presence. And we want to be, as a detachment, we want to kind of lead that for the region. So that's why we're going to get moving on it.
Great. No, look forward to it. Whatever, the ball's in your court to reach out to us. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah, Dwight made a great suggestion here too. Karen Golick, our administrator here, she's been working with the detachment for a long period of time, and she would be really good on keeping us updated with who's coming and who's going. Like, it might even be nice to kind of include, you know, who our constables are. And when we get new constables, like on the Facebook side of things, Carl, you know, with our own staff here, we always do a little write up in the bulletin, like welcoming them to the community. So we could even put a little blast on Facebook, like welcoming new constables when they come. And then people start, you know, people get to know who they are. They can put a face to the name, especially in communities the size of ours.
That's a great idea.
You might have as well as a welcoming, a thanks for being here, a goodbye to the officers as they leave too, to let people know where they're going.
Yeah. I mean, because this wasn't part of the agenda, I know, but I know I've spoken with some of you about this. Is we're trying to, the goal right now is to have a big push to revitalize our auxiliary program. And because right now the Sioux Lookout auxiliary members that we have 3, and they're very dedicated and good members, but their office, let's say, is run through Kenora detachment. So we've requested to have our own Sioux Lookout cluster auxiliary unit with members in Sioux Lookout, Pickle Lake, Wapakika, and NCL. And so then the training is done in one of our 4 communities, and you know, we're not driving to Kenora to do an hour's worth of training. So like, there's an example of something that we could put on municipal websites too, where we talk about how do you apply to be an auxiliary member, because we, you know, our goal for the municipality of Sioux Lookout is to have 7. We have 3. Pickle Lake, we'd like to have at least 2, I think, 2 or more. And then for the north, it would be 2 in NCL and 1 in Wapakika potentially. So, you know, getting those messages out there too, that we want volunteers and we're looking for that opportunity, would be good.
I know they're not OPP communities, but I think of Pickle Lake and Mishkogogoming, and I think about Sioux Lookout and Lac Sioux. Is there an opportunity for those 2 communities to be part of that auxiliary officer training part? There's more. I know your officers sometimes respond to calls, help assistance in Lac Sioux and vice versa. So there is already a connection. Is that something that you'd look at?
Well, what we've said is, and I don't know if this answers your question directly, but what we've said is that, you know, even for Wapakika, let's say, we're trying to get at least 1 position there. But if a suitable candidate applies from KI, you know, they definitely could join as an OPP. Their station would be Wapakika, but it would be the same if there was a qualified candidate in Mishkogogomeh that wanted to be an OPP auxiliary. Yeah, they'd be OPP at a Pickle Lake auxiliary. It'd be great. If that's what you're asking.
Yeah, but I guess that, and also that the Lac Sioux Police Service, for example, may have the capacity to do things like this is a little less than the OPP, and they might want to join in and develop their own auxiliary officers working with you on the program.
Yeah, I'd have to leave that. That one's, I don't know how they would do that.
No, just a thought. Yeah.
Yep.
So Carl, just to clarify something, is Big Trout sort of the old school First Nation policing scenario?
Yes.
Oh, they are. Okay,
Yes.
so you're not rotating officers in and out like you do Wapakika and
Well, the way it works, right, is they have their own KI police, and then but they're an enhancement to policing there. So they have right now 3 constables and a sergeant, but that's not enough to run an effective 24-hour policing. So we do supplement OPP officers into that community as well to police.
so that's sort of like the old Northwest Patrol format.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, now why did that stay like that as opposed to Wapakika and Weagama?
KI has opted in to stay with their own police service. And yeah, that was a decision that they made.
Okay, I was just trying to get my head wrapped around the three of them and the differences. Okay, yeah.
Very good. Anything further on that, on this item D, really? We were looking at the website.
Nope, I will make sure that Paige knows who to reach out to, Michelle for Pickle, and then I guess you, Jamie, for Pickle Lake. Sorry, Michelle for Sioux Lookout, Jamie for Pickle Lake.
Very good. Thank you. All right, so our next meeting date is July 21st, 2021 at 1 p.m. We may be, I think we'll be meeting before that. Michelle will be calling us for a joint meeting to discuss the police services boards. So that'll happen before that. And before I ask for a motion to adjourn, anything further from Christine?
Actually, I know this wasn't on the agenda. For if there's any concerns, like for concerns, we just recently, and I probably know, we recently purchased credit union, and we've moved in there. It's developmental services under SLIFNA. There was a concern raised from the staff that we have a lot of homeless people that kind of hang around there and claiming it to be their area. So the staff have been like concerned because we have clients that come from up north who are vulnerable, that are in a developmental disability sector. So we have clinics there. Is there a way that we can kind of, I don't know, help patrol that area just to kind of, I don't know. It's something that an area of concern for our staff and clients, because there's just so many, they've gone out there and they're scared to be out there because they get bothered, and the clients, especially that are vulnerable coming for our clinics, it's kind of scary for our staff, for them, because there's so much partying going around at that building. Is there something that we could do about that?
Like I guess, I mean, we do know about that. That place has always been a popular place for people to hang out in the back, especially in behind, right?
Yes.
And so that is, I know, part of their regular patrol, and it's a difficult scenario, right, Christine, because they, we can ask them to move along, and then by the time our cruiser goes around the corner, they can come back, and there's really not a lot else that we can do, unless, I mean, if you have some ideas that you would like, it's a very difficult situation.
I mean, what we have done is we have given them like take taxi POs, just so we can tell them if they need a ride to go somewhere. But they say, well, this is their territory. So it's kind of scary for our staff. I was just questioning to see if there was anything.
I mean, what we could do is we could try to see about making sure that we do some drop-ins over there.
Yeah.
Like, it's because of COVID, I don't know if we can just drop into the building either. Like, there might be restrictions on that. And that's kind of something we did with the senior center.
Yeah.
Just having a kind of a presence there, but that's more of a drop-in, like, kind of place. Like, if you're talking about a medical facility, you may not want the police just popping in either, because there might be some privacy issues, right? And if it's an office.
I mean, it's secured, like if they have a lock. I mean, you have to buzz in to get in. It's just they sit in front of the windows, and there's clinic going on, right? And I mean, they've been told, I mean, if they could go move to somewhere else, but then they react to, and they said it's
Yeah. So what I can do, What I can do is just ask that there be, like, Monday to Friday, for sure, there be some focus on that area.
Yeah.
And again, just try to move people along, because if they're not intoxicated, it becomes a tough issue, right?
Yeah.
And with the new mobile crisis response, that is something. And then with the other unit that's going to be patrolling around in a van through Slifna and Noden, actually, maybe what we should be doing is asking them to stop in there often and having their workers talk to these people.
Sounds great. Thanks.
But what I'll do, Christine, is I'll make sure that we try to do what we can to stop by there a couple times a day, and
That'd be great.
at least if we're there, even just talking to them, it might make everybody feel a little bit safer. And sometimes if that's where we are, they don't want to be there and they'll find somewhere else to go.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
I think it speaks to a larger issue. That is, in a sense, it's not a policing issue, because as you say, there's not much you can do, but where do the people, you sort of shift the people to another location, and you shift the challenge to another business or agency or whatever is what happens. I'm not suggesting that it shouldn't be done, but I think that the real challenge is that the people are coming from either they're underhoused or can't stay in their homes for the day for various reasons, or they're in town. Maybe they're staying at the shelter, or maybe they're couch surfing or whatever. And where else are they going to go in the day? It's a hangout. That my experience on the Muckwood clan is that particular location became quite popular, especially when there was less traffic, as that after the credit union closed. But it's recessed from the street a lot at the front, and then it always had the access to the ATM, and the heated lobby was always an attraction. And then at the back, there's areas there where and the people were going to, I mean, they're not going to break into the facility. It's a place to hang out. So the real issue for me is there's nowhere for the people to hang out. And they may not have a home that would accept them during the day or at that time of night. Or they want to be with their peers, and it's I don't know what the solution to the fear that people have, and the the little, and I do understand the fear or feeling awkward in that situation, but it's a challenge.
Yeah.
And part of the solution to me is, when we had the cold weather drop-in center on Front Street, it located a lot of people into one area, but boy, that was used on a huge basis by the people, and they gathered there to chat, to have a cup of coffee, to play cards, or just to stay warm and be with their friends. And it took a lot of people off those hangouts in front of other businesses. But we'll leave it to Inspector Dool to come up with the.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, I think discussing this with Noden and their new mobile team that might be one strategy for them.
Yeah, one of the challenges they're going to have, though, is they don't have anywhere. It's nice to have a mobile team, but they have nowhere to the endpoints are all still the same. It's the emergency department, the hospital, it's the OPP detachment cells, or it's the emergency shelter. Those are that's it. And if there's not a medical emergency, they're not going to the hospital. If they haven't committed a crime, they're not going to the cells. So it's only the shelter, and the shelter isn't equipped or resourced at all to handle all the people. So I'm glad, ecstatic that we're having the mobile response team, but it's the line between the dots, and there aren't enough dots to connect the people to. That's the places to take people.
If I may, Mayor Lawrence, I feel like the issue that Christine has brought up is one that we have to address in Pickle Lake as well. But I do think that this is definitely a good topic of discussion moving forward with the community safety well-being plans that our communities are putting into place. And it's definitely a topic that can be addressed through those boards that will be formed and discussions to be had to better serve the social needs of our communities and the inclusivity of them.
Absolutely.
I think too, I don't know about Sioux Lookout, but in Tickle, since COVID started, that particular issue is probably down, I don't know, 75%. I don't know if Sioux Lookout's the same or not, but I know when you back it right up to the stats, I guess we'll see the stats next week, but our lockups for intoxicated individuals it's got to be down 90% since COVID. It'll be nice if it could stay like that, but I don't think it will. I think it'll bounce back. So right now the issues just are masked a bit. We can only hope.
Well, I think for us in Sioux Lookout, and Inspector, you could maybe comment a bit more on the stats, but I know driving through town, it depends on the day, but I would say that the numbers seem to be, again, they seem to be similar to what they were pre-COVID. I'm not sure. I'm sure maybe down a bit.
Yeah, like, I mean, it's tough. Like last year they were down incredibly, right? Because there was less, I think we talked about this yesterday. There's a lot less traffic into the community, right? The services were not being offered, and there wasn't people being trapped in that cycle. And, you know, as services open back up, then that same kind of cycle happens again. And then we have to be, we know we can notice that especially this year so far, as services have opened up, you know, we're getting a little bit busier with some of those same things that we had in 2019 and the past. And we do need some help with some of those social service holes that we have, but we also have to go out there and make sure that people feel safe walking into their workplace too. And it's just, I was thinking about it while you guys were chatting too. And like, Christine, is there somebody that I could send Andrea to talk to about, like, maybe there's some, just some options that you could do with the building itself that would make it a little bit less attractive for the hangout spot? And that's really one of Andrea's specialties, is to look at those things, but we would know who you recommend that we talk to on that.
I guess it would be our supervisor, Susan Chapman. I know they're talking to the Oshtagon to see if they can put a fence in between there, so there's no walking through there. I don't think they've talked to them yet, but that was one of the suggestions that we had in discussing what options we may have to stop the traffic coming through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we should be careful on our meeting not to get too specific, but some of this I think would be best on an offline discussion. I think there's a general challenge here, but when we get into specifics, I think perhaps we should do that offline. Is that fair?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and ongoing challenges.
Yeah.
But as I said to somebody the other day, they're brought on by ongoing opportunities. We could, if we shut down the airport and shut down the hotels and whatever, we could get our statistics way down. But then we'd have to sell a bunch of houses because there wouldn't be any jobs in Sioux Lookout. If one thing goes with the other, it seems there'll be a couple of decades of transition to something better is what we hope. But all right. You've rejoined us in time, Michelle, to know that the burden of everything that we've decided is on your shoulders. So thanks for coming back.
Good to
I guess
know.
we'll have a motion to adjourn. Unless you had any bright ideas while you were gone, Michelle?
None.
None, you're good, okay. We'll chat later. All right,
Okay.
thanks, Christine, with motion to adjourn, seconded by Doug. All in favor, carried. Thanks, everybody, for coming. And we'll see you on the 21st of July, but probably before, at a meeting that Michelle will organize for us with the 4 communities. And
Thank
I
you for the
guess,
invite, Russ.
sorry?
Thank you for the invite for Pickle Lake. Appreciate it.
You bet. And Carl, you won't be invited to that interim meeting because, as you say, it's the police itself aren't part of that process. Is that right, Michelle?
Yes, that's correct.
Yep, perfect.
All right, thanks, everybody.
We'll see you next
Okay,
week.